The way in which Brandon Lee died while filming The Crow has never been a mystery, so why has his family always believed that it wasn't an accident? The Crow was seemingly a cursed production from the beginning. In fact, trouble began on the very first day of shooting when a crew member was nearly electrocuted after power lines hit the crane in which he was working. He suffered severe burns that inhibited his ability to talk and required 2 years' worth of surgeries. The same day, another crew member was involved in a traffic collision, and a fire broke out in an equipment truck. Later, a sculptor purposefully crashed into a workshop in a fit of rage. A construction worker pierced their hand with a screwdriver, and some of the sets were destroyed in a storm. It wasn't until the final stretch of filming that Lee's fatal shooting occurred. The day before Lee was shot, the crew filmed a take that involved a gun being pointed at the camera barrel first. However, there were concerns that light filtering through the shaft would let viewers know the firearm was unloaded. To make the take more authentic, the prop handler loaded the gun with a dummy bullet, which was intended to block the light. Tragically, the next day, the same prop was used in a take featuring Lee and loaded with a blank, which, when fired, discharged the dummy that struck Lee in the abdomen.
They do the shot, and then he drops down, and everybody waits for him to get up, and he didn't get up.
After being rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery, Lee died 6 hours later. Director Dwight H. Little, who worked with Lee on Rapid Fire, later noted in his memoir, Still Rolling Inside the Hollywood Dream Factory, that the prop department was meant to check that the weapon was not loaded prior to the scene and to show the director that the barrel was clear. Sadly, they didn't follow the safety requirements. According to Little, another major issue with the fatal scene was the angle of the gun at the moment the supposed blank was discharged. In his memoir, he notes that it is common practice for handguns to be fired purposefully away from their on-screen targets. During the fatal take in question, Brandon Lee carried a grocery bag before being shot multiple times, with the actor detonating a small explosive in the bag the moment the first blank was fired. It seemed somewhat unnecessary then that the barrel of the gun was pointed directly at Lee. It might have been avoided too. Reports have noted that by the time the crew of The Crow were filming the scene that proved fatal for Lee, the set was without a dedicated firearms specialist. He left after all the takes featuring semi-automatic weapons were already in the can. Looking back through a modern filmmaking lens, the fact that handguns were not treated with the same respect seems an obvious oversight. The on-set death of any leading actor would cause shockwaves through the movie industry, but the fatal shooting of Brandon Lee took on a life of its own within days of being headline news.
You didn't say goodbye.
You're just gonna have to forgive me for that.
Much of this was to do with the uncanny similarities to the death of his father, Bruce, who also died suddenly at the peak of his fame. Bruce Lee was one of the world's most athletic and physically impressive actors. However, in private, he suffered with chronic pain, and he died at age 32 after a reported allergic reaction to a painkiller, which led to fatal swelling of the brain. Later theories, however, suggested the cause of death was actually acute water intoxication. Following his death, rumors swirled that the actor had been murdered, potentially by the Chinese organized crime group, the Triads, after he refused to let them take control of his career, though the Lee family insisted this was not the case. That history could repeat itself in Bruce's son seemed too much of a coincidence for many fans to take. In the wake of Brandon's death, many conspiracy theories suggested that he had been murdered, with motives typically mirroring those of the supposed assassins who had killed Bruce. Members of the Lee family and his colleagues took to the media to share their belief that both men had been murdered, while fans speculated that a curse had been put on the Lee family to impose early death on its male progeny. More than 3 decades later, no criminal charges have ever been filed in relation to the shooting of Brandon Lee or the death of his father.